All right, it is 7 o'clock. I'll call the meeting in order. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, can I get a motion to approve the agenda?
I'll make a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve the agenda.
I'll second the motion.
Got a motion by Councilmember McKnight and a second by Councilmember Pershman. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion passes. All right, community comment. We so rarely have folks in our council chambers, but before we do that, presenters are welcome to address the council at City Council for up to 5 minutes on matters that are not listed on tonight's meeting agenda. Specific requests for information may not immediately be available, in which case follow-up will occur with the presenters sometime after tonight's meeting. The City Council should not be expected to immediately act on requests. However, we will have someone follow up accordingly and may schedule items for future consideration. All right, whoever is here this evening to speak can come up, turn on the microphone, and you have to introduce yourself with your name and your address, please. Good evening. Can you sit down and turn on the...
The owner of the property 216 Carver Creek Place, that was a hazardous building. That was declared last year when there was the meeting here on the 18th of July. And so basically I have I apologize for my language. I'm not just the English part of my first language, but maybe I can understand it.
Don't worry about it.
Okay, You're so good. The thing is, I just have something to read it because it's just to memorize these things. Okay, I just own this house 100%. That means 100%. There's no other liens or anything on it. And then I built the house myself over 5 years, from 2002 to 2006, basically from my own savings and using my working myself on the house. The house is two-story walkout, 3,700 square feet, and 3-car garage. It's not finished inside, but outside is finished. What was required by the city at that time, they wanted just to finish outside, and no inside work was required at that time. And there's still, I remember that, there's not many people that remember that when I was building at that time. Beside Eric, that was just my neighbor, and other people here, the mayor, all these other guys are still living on the same street, basically. But so over the time, basically, the house stood there, and there was no concerns or anything like that. And suddenly, it's gonna be demolished. So that's my concern now, just to ask the city, or any questions about that, just to clarify. So another thing, the house is everything I own, basically. It's all I own. It's just the house. And in 2003, when we started building it, it took a long time to do the foundation. So we had an order to follow with the construction, the timeline, and then so basically they wanted the house to finish outside and give the city $19,000 for the guarantee. And after that, we followed the deadlines and finished all what was required at that time. And then we got back the $19,000 and finished in 2006. What is right now, right now there. So at that time, the building inspector was Mr. Williams, that actually oversaw everything and made all these inspections, and I have the proof of them, proof of the inspections for the house, for these constructions. Yeah. Yeah, after we finished the house, we actually connected also water sewer, so that's connected there. So that's done also. Yeah. At that time, I estimated it took about $120,000 for the materials only, and yeah, That's how much, no counting the work on the house. It's estimated $160,000 for the taxes. We pay about, over these years, we paid about $70,000 in taxes for the house, every year, you know. So I keep the taxes to make sure you're not gonna lose the house. Actually, when everything was done, I make sure everything is, you know, nice, cut the grass, and made, you know, no any conflict with the neighbors or anything. So, because there was concern earlier that we actually make some, you know, a noise or with the construction. So that's why it actually didn't have the permit, but didn't want to have much, you know, a lot of problems also with the construction. Yeah. But after everything went, and my wife got sick and had an operation, and also my children went to the university, a lot of financial problems then, you know, kind of difficult. So it was a difficult time to continue the construction. Also, over time, there was something that we have a homeowner association that foreclosed our house 2 times because we were not aware how we're gonna pay them $250 for the fee, and somehow it changed, and suddenly it was foreclosed 2 times. We actually bought it back. So we pay those attorney fees for everything. Yeah, so that's it.
Mr. Churchill, I'm going
Yeah.
to remind you, I'd like you
Too
to
long.
try to keep your comments
Yeah,
to 5 minutes.
sorry
We're at
about
5
it.
minutes right now. So if you
Yeah,
could wrap
all
it
right,
up,
sorry about
please.
it. Okay, so actually, I would like, just my point here, I would like to ask the city council, because they decided on that, if there's a possibility that I could basically sell the house to somebody. I have a number of people interested in it because I'm not able to finish it. I found two parties that actually gave me like the letter of intent with the price, everything. They look at the house, they want to finish it. Because, you know, that's my point. If there is a possibility that would be, so we could find out a way to solve something here. And if that would be possible, that I would like to ask, you know, for some solution on that, if that's possible. So besides that, I have a number of things, but I don't want to, if it's too long, that's okay, about these many things that were not good in the house, but I don't agree on many of those things.
Okay.
Sorry about this.
Mr. Churchill, because
Yeah.
this involves a lawsuit and we're in litigation with
Yeah,
you,
yeah,
I'm
yeah, I
going to
know.
bounce it over to our attorney, Dave
Yeah.
Anderson.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor and Council and Mr. Torchala. It's
Yes.
nice to actually meet you and
Nice to meet
talk to you. I know I've been sending things to you, and hopefully you.
Yeah, we read all those things, yeah.
Yeah. Council, as you know, Mr. Torchala's comments are in relation to a hazardous building matter that's been ongoing. It's been tied up in litigation. It was initiated by the city last, as Mr. Torchala says, July. And it relates to the structure on his property that was abandoned many years ago. And as part of that litigation, the Honorable Judge Broughton in Carver County District Court recently authorized the city to demolish the structure pursuant to state law. And Mr. Torchala and his wife were provided with ample due process and a meaningful opportunity to dispute all those issues throughout the proceedings. And as I'll repeat it to Mr. Torchala tonight, and I've said in numerous, letters and other things that have gone out to him. As a city attorney, I'm happy to talk about this case with you. Please reach out if you'd like to discuss it in more detail. But given the nature of the litigation, it's not really prudent for the council to comment about your requests here in this forum in an open meeting. And again, it's sort of related to things that are going on outside of this room and in the court of law. So again, I think your comments tonight were received by the council. I believe I was made aware that you sent similar comments to each of them as well via email, which is perfectly okay. And I think if you have any questions for me afterwards, I'm happy to chat. I can give you my contact information. We can talk about it.
All right, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. All right, I know we have some other folks up.
Yeah. I gotta bring my interpreter with me.
That is fine.
It
The more
is?
the merrier.
Oh,
All right, if you guys can introduce yourselves, name and address, and I'll remind you again, we like folks to keep their comments to about 5 minutes.
Thank you. Lisa McColeman, 209 Main Street West.
And I'm Al McColden at 209 Main Street West. Reason why here tonight, we had a situation happen here 2 days ago in front of our house where my wife was threatened by a man who was well over the speed limit. And I really can't do too much other than wave my arms and he could lip read. So he decides he's going to bail on the binders, come to a screeching halt in front of our pickup, and then verbally abusive, because how dare I be threatening, and I'm gone. Serious, dude? Really? So my wife says to him, it's 30 miles an hour here. We have children on this street. And he proceeds to get real ugly with my wife. Now, for as banged up as I am, I'm not taking that. I shouldn't have to be threatened in front of my house. My neighbors who are sitting here, who bought their house because we had a real good law enforcement presence here. We were very proud of our law enforcement presence here. Okay.
The main issue is on West Main Street from the western end right down to the intersection of Broadway. It's one speeding vehicle after another. And we had another incident today with somebody in a black Porsche. I did report that individual to the sheriff's non-emergency number, where I stepped out off the curb and tried to get the guy to slow down, and he basically blew me off, and he had to have been doing at least 50 miles an hour, and this is non-stop. And we've lived here for 23 years. Deputy Lassard was always very proactive. Deputy Gowan, unbelievably proactive. Deputy Sandberg, same thing. Now that Deputy Sandberg has been promoted and she isn't our community police presence, it's gotten worse. And we do have neighbors with little kids, and there are lots of people who are making use of the levee trails, and they're trying to cross West Main, and they're taking their lives into their hands each and every time they do it. Mm-hmm. So if something could be done in terms of increasing the police presence again, and if some permanent solution could be looked at, stop sign, inverted speed bump, something, because it's ridiculous.
The thing of it is that you can make a phone call, and Katie was on it. When Katie first started here, Katie was hated. Oh, these locals here just, they cried and they moaned, She gave me a ticket because I thought I'd come to a complete stop, but I ran the stop sign and she wrote them up. Oh, the crying and whining was ridiculous. Only took 2 weeks, and we didn't have any more of that crap no more, because Katie was on it. And this, I am 100% pro-law for enforcement, 100%. If you were to ask any of the deputies that we've had here in the last 23 years, if I seen one of them going over that levee by themselves, I was on their heels, because that is not how law enforcement should be handled, especially with some of the morons we've had out back. We have a beautiful city which you guys have put together. This city, the only reason this city has got a downtown what it's got today is because of the people who are sitting in this room. But when the people going to the coffee shop over there are running from their vehicles to keep from getting hit from these clowns that do not know where a brake pedal is until they cross the bridge. Somebody's gonna get hurt. We had a close call here 2 years ago with a young kid on a bicycle running in the side of a car. Wasn't the young lady's fault, but it still happened. The last thing I want to see is a fatality in front of my house. Because babies are precious. And right now we got 3 very, very, very precious babies who live across the street from us.
I'm gonna wrap you guys, ask you to wrap up because.
Okay.
I'd
And
like to
that's
keep it 5
basically-
minutes.
basically it.
Basically what we're trying to say. Our neighbors are here with us. They've witnessed this. And
And we're good.
Yeah.
yes, dear. She has spoken.
A few times.
So just a few things. Thank you for coming.
Okay.
I appreciate you coming. Don't let it get this bad before you come the next time. Unfortunately, there's very little, we can definitely make sure that we have our deputies look at it and sit down there and are monitoring for speed. We're in a little bit of a bad situation because our night deputy resigned from the Carver County Sheriff's Department and he's getting a new job. We have experienced, I think probably as you guys have known, it sounds like you've built some relationships with our town cops over the years. In the last handful of years, and it's not unique to the Carver County Sheriff's Department necessarily, but there's been an issue with retention
you
in
bet.
police work.
Yep.
So we're experiencing that pain point at probably the worst time of year going into this. So we contract for 2 full-time equivalent deputies. We have 1 right now.
Right.
His name is Chafin, Deputy Chafin. I couldn't think of his last name. And so we will definitely, I know Brent can definitely put this on his radar, which is probably a bad pun, no pun intended. But we'll make sure that he watches out for that area. He's our day deputy. We're trying to see, and it was actually something that we just spoke about at the tail end of our work session, was to see if we can come up with something creative, perhaps with a neighboring community to get a little more coverage.
There was a little something I found in California, Chicago once. But I would love to be able to speak to you and this city council at a different time. Real cheap fix, and it done wonders for us schools. It was pretty wild.
Yeah.
Yeah, and very inexpensive, but it worked.
The only other thing that I wanted, like for all of you guys, and I tell my neighbors this, I can read a text to you from my next door neighbor that I got the other night that said we just had somebody going through the neighborhood too fast. The minute you see it, you can dial 911. And don't worry that it's not a 911 related emergency. These individuals can say that every time that we have the sheriff sitting there giving a presentation, I have him repeat what he said to us once. They've got plenty of capacity in their 911 system. That's something that we remember. I know that I've got the non-emergency number in my phone. I'm sure we all do, but it takes a little bit longer to look it up. So dial 911 the next time you see something that concerns you and that elevates to that level.
Well, I do thank the city council, and like I said, kudos to you guys for what you've accomplished here.
Yeah.
It shows.
Thank you for coming. Appreciate you
problem.
guys
Thank you.
sharing your concerns. Anybody else want to speak?
He's our elected spokesperson.
Okay. He was elected as tribute.
Only when she lets me.
Okay. This is going once, going twice. You guys look like you're thinking about it. No. Okay. All right. Okay, then we're going to move on. Thank you guys for coming. We appreciate it.
Thank you very much. Really appreciate it.
Don't know if you had anything else, but I think you'll follow up.
I'll talk to Deputy Chief tomorrow and some of the command staff at the sheriff's office. So we'll start with a conversation, but I would say within the next few days, you'll see more law enforcement presence in that neighborhood and the stretch of streets from Broadway to probably Hickory along Main there for coverage, not just from our deputy, but probably area cars, so we can try to nip this in the bud. So
We would really appreciate it. Thank you so much. All right.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
No problem. Okay, let's see, moving on. We have no presentations and reports this evening, no public hearings. Can I get a motion to approve the consent agenda?
I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Got a motion by Councilmember Sayer
I'll second.
and a second by Councilmember Pershman. Any further discussion?
No.
All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Motion passes. All right. Business items, 8.1, peddlers, solicitors, transient merchants, and mobile food units, the ordinance. Ms. Sonstein?
Thank you, Mayor and Council. I will say that this is one that I am really excited about, so Lynn's not the only one that can have fun with some of her items. This is one that I have been looking forward to working on and to actually getting to the point of implementation. As you know, we brought this, I would say Dave did a lot of background and work on this as well, similar to the large event permitting. And at this point is, again, turning it over to me. I will be responsible for the day-to-day operation of this. And you looked at this on 2 work sessions, both March 20th and April 17th, provided a lot of feedback, which was incorporated into this final version that you see here tonight. And just a couple of things that I would add. We know that we also have some mobile food units already licensed here in the city, and we've talked about how we're going to transition them into the new process. So in the meantime, when this becomes effective, if it's adopted tonight and then it's published in the paper, it'll become effective. I think the date would be something like May 11th. Then everybody who has a license would be responsible for all of the provisions in that ordinance. So I have mentioned that to them as they've applied in the last couple of weeks that this is coming, and I will be emailing and also mailing copies of that so nobody can say, well, I didn't know that this changed. And then also I think it will help next year when they come for their renewal. They're not going to be surprised like, well, why do I need to have a different form? Why do I need different information? So with that said, I would just open up if there are any further questions. Otherwise, after that, I would be looking for 2 motions that are identified there in the packet.
Any questions for Vicki?
I don't have any questions.
I don't have any questions. We've had a lot of discussion around this.
Gonna say,
Yeah,
for folks watching
for
at
sure.
home, this is not the first time or the second time, and maybe not even the third time that we've seen this. So we have
Yeah.
really gone through this with a fine-tooth comb, and Vicki, you've done a great job. So I will make a motion to approve ordinance number 03, 2023, an ordinance amending chapter 10 of the Carver City Code requiring peddlers, solicitors, transient merchants, and mobile food units.
I'll second.
We have a motion by Mayor Johnson and a second by Councilmember McKnight. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion passes.
I'll make a motion to approve resolution 115-23, a resolution authorizing summary publication of ordinance number 03-2023.
We have a motion by Councilmember Sayer
I'll second.
and a second by Councilmember McKnight. Any further discussion? Nope. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion passes. All right. Thank you, Vicki. Item 8.2, the Municipal State Aid Program map revision. Aaron, are you excited about this one?
I am. Thank you,
I
Mayor.
didn't feel the emotion in your voice, but
Love it.
I'll take your word for it.
Yep. So, thank you, Mayor, Council. Good evening. So tonight we have a Municipal State Aid Street map revision request that's before you. So this is something that's kind of been a long time in the making. It relates to the CASA 40 turnback agreement that we recently executed with Carver County here this winter. So this is kind of the last step in the process in actually getting that former CASA 40 route, which is from Jonathan Carver Parkway along, let's see, what do we call that actually? It's Main Street West, so starting at Jonathan Carver Parkway, Main Street West to Broadway, go up Broadway, down 4th Street East, and then out of town on Old Carver Road to the city limit line, which is just prior to County Road 61. So that's basically the entire segment of Old County Road 40 within the city limits of the city of Carver. That would be a turnback route that would be added to our MSA system. The unique thing about turnbacks is they don't count against our system mileage. So for every other route that we have as an MSA route, we can only have 20% of our total local city roads be designated as an MSA route. Turnbacks are unique in that it doesn't count against that. So it's simply above and beyond that other system mileage. So that's really nice. It doesn't count against us, and we can add that in really with no implications to the rest of the system. So in a nutshell, that's what we're requesting tonight, is for the city to adopt a resolution establishing this route as a municipal state aid street. If the council adopts the resolution, I basically just need to submit that to the state aid office, and then a final commissioner's order from the Commissioner of Transportation would be issued, formally establishing that as a route. After all that's done, that route will then be added into the needs calculation for 2024, so the city will be receiving additional funding for that segment starting next year. Any questions?
Hope. I think we all knew this was coming.
Yeah, it's pretty straightforward. It's another one that, while we haven't discussed this specifically, the process to get here was discussed over and over and over again. So I'll make a motion to adopt Resolution 117-23, establishing municipal state aid streets in the city of Carver, Minnesota.
I'll second.
We've got a motion by Mayor Johnson and a second by Councilmember Pershman. Any further discussion?
Nope.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion passes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Super exciting.
All right, Mr. Merrick, city council updates.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor and Council, for parking this over to the regular meeting.
He did it again.
So this actually came up from our Parks team meeting that we had last week. So it was a combination of a couple of things. One, really trying to focus on community expectations for the landscape areas in the city that the city has invested in quite a bit. So think of the roundabout on Jonathan Carver Parkway, the planting bed at 6th and Broadway, the planting beds at Broadway and Main where the tugboat area is, Levi Griffin Road, Monroe Drive, etc. And the playground areas, keeping those free of weeds, making them look sharp, and kind of talking about that as a group with Chad and Paul, just kind of outlining a potential need to invest in more seasonal staff to maintain that standard. What we've been talking about is not necessarily golf course standard, but front yard standard. If you looked out at your front yard, would you say, oh, I got to pull that weed, but not necessarily like manicured to the point where it's like nothing is out of place. That conversation combined with when to reopen Riverside Park in light of the recent flooding and the amount of time that we'll be taking, and then some anecdotal stories that if the council's interested, Chad can share related to kind of some of the precautions that our staff takes to mow. Wanted to get some feedback on expectations for Riverside Park, and if the council decides to keep everything as is, we can make those accommodations and kind of keep moving forward, but at least we wanted to broach the subject. So on average, about 20 to 24 hours a week to maintain, so that's mowing and trimming. So think basically 3 seasonal staffers down there for a day to mow and trim. Approximately 7.5 acres, and by perspective, the existing Ironwood Park without the addition is about 9.5 acres. So the 2 big fields, the kind of some of the open areas. The plan that we're kind of proposing to the council would be to maintain in that kind of the low grow or turf kind of style, the campsite areas, the archery area, the boat landing parking lot, and the entrance road. Just could do like a safety strip along both sides, but then leaving, as you can see here, that no mow area and kind of its natural habitat, letting that grow up. The public services team is estimating that approximately 75% of the staff time dedicated to that per week could be cut down to 5 to 6 hours, with that additional seasonal time dedicated toward landscape and playground areas throughout the city. I think, as most of you know, that no mow area is subject to regular flooding, and just looking at getting this aerial, there are several years where all of this is completely underwater. So, but that has left quite a few areas of uneven ground, has caused some erosion issues, which the council has talked about in previous meetings. And unfortunately, these areas are really prone to, it's probably at least twice a year where we have someone whipping donuts down there and ripping up the turf. And then just kind of an update, the No-Mow area does have preliminary grant funding to be restored to kind of a native prairie and habitat. Think turf trails, bird watching areas, some informational kiosks. So we're anticipating that sometime within the next 1 to 3 years through Great River Greening. As you know, Councilmember Mock isn't able to make the meeting tonight, so she sent a message, and I told her that I'd share that, so I'm just going to read that to the council. So Councilmember Mock states, Riverside Park is a gem in our community. Many people go down there to walk, hang out, go fishing, sit and look at the river, camp, etc. Although not as visible as the rest of our parks, it still should be seen for the value it adds. Number 2, last year mowing down there was overlooked for a number of weeks, and I had contacted Brent about it. When I was down there, as the grass does not grow as tall or fast, most of the area on the north side was waist-high weeds, and it looked terrible. 3, council had discussed previously that the area between the campsites and the boat launch would continue to be mowed and not be planted with native grasses and plants to continue to have an open area for people to play, etc. I would like us to stick with that plan. 4, until the area is decided to be turned into a natural planted area, I would still suggest that we maintain it, or we won't be doing anything but fighting established weeds and noxious plants in the future. 5, I am not opposed to the plans of the plantings and the nature walk, but I think we might be doing ourselves a disservice by letting it go before that time. 6, I realize the extra time it takes to maintain that currently. However, I do think it needs to be maintained until we are ready to make the change over. As we know, it will be short-term now for maintenance. So happy to answer any questions on the content that I provided, and Chad's available to answer questions as well.
All right, any questions?
So I don't really have a sense of how well utilized that area is as a park. It sounds like this has been under discussion before. Are we going to be losing something that a number of people utilize for things other than burnouts?
So for one, the burnout contest was no longer in existence. Right. I would say it's in the eye of the beholder. So anecdotally, there's no programming down there other than there's some archery. The campsites are really well used. The boat launch, I think, is a regional amenity. I would only feel comfortable in anecdotally saying that there's, at most, you'll see that I'll see 1 to 2 people that might be walking toward the boat launch, but I traditionally, it doesn't mean it doesn't happen or doesn't mean it happen a lot, because it's not like a daily visit for me. I don't see a lot of people down there, but Councilmember Mock is down there quite a bit more often than I am, so I just don't feel like I'm in a position to gauge use other than to say there's no official programming down there other than the uses that I mentioned.
Understood. Does this make the boat launch inaccessible in any way?
No.
Okay.
Let's see, I think, the way I look at this is a little bit when we were discussing the equipment certificate. If staff comes to us with something, this seems like it makes a lot of sense. I think that Riverside Park is a little bit of a less utilized park. And just anecdotally, the stories of the staff member who had to bring in 2 pillows from home so that he could comfortably ride through the bumpy terrain down there because of all the folks who go down mudding this time of year when it's wet and swampy. That's created all of the ruts that are in there. I know that long-term, the plan is to let it go more natural. And it just seems like I would so much rather prefer to see extra attention on Olson Park or on the landscaping that we just put in the roundabout that I think is getting handed off to us this year. Or the other parks where there are kids playing softball. I remember a few years ago, we were a little late in mowing Community Park, and I got emails of folks with their 4-year-olds knee-high in grass. You know, this is a great amenity in our community, but I think it's a lower priority. And if we can pay more attention to the higher used amenities in our community by cutting back a little bit here and letting this area go natural, I'm fine with that.
Yeah, I mean, I think we've always treated Riverside Park a little bit differently because it does flood, right? I mean, we have very consciously not made certain investments because of the flooding and erosion that has taken place in that park. That's not something we can control. And so, I mean, I do like that we are working to find a way to make this park more more beautiful, I guess, with the Great River Greening initiative. I know we don't have that yet, but I applaud our efforts to try to do something with this to make it a little bit more usable than it is today. I think that the plan here is to take care of the areas that are well used, right? The campsites, the archery, the boat launch, et cetera. And it'll still be walkable for people who want to connect. I think there's a DNR trail back at the back end of it. So you can still connect through there. I don't really have a problem with it. I mean, I'm just astounded by how long it takes to maintain it. I agree with Mayor Johnson that, this is a significant amount of time and investment. And that I agree, we should prioritize that investment in other areas.
Lori? I have the same sentiment as Councilmember McKnight and Mayor Johnson expressed. My is more that, so I support the maintenance expectations. I'd really like number 4 and 5 to be like heavily communicated.
Yep.
And then part of it is knowing that next year, 2023, we're likely to buy a $40,000, not that I really know about lawnmowers and stuff, but there's the Kubota mower. But just thinking that the risk of the damage to our equipment, for me, is a higher risk than these, noxious plants,
And our people.
weeds.
And our people.
And yes, it's just not very cosmetic, it's not gonna be beautifully landscaped, but I'll give that up, because if we're investing a lot of money in the equipment that we have and that we're likely gonna continue to need. So I support this.
Do you want to opine? I think you asked a question more earlier. No pressure, but.
Just one other question. The part of this that's along the river, because there's I think Councilmember Mock made a comment about people walking along the river and the views. Is it easier to maintain that side of it than the side where people are kind of digging in with off-road vehicles?
They take the opportunities on either side, the north or the south. If the river, as far as walking next to the river, there's a tree line there on that south side. So the camping sites, the river is accessible from the campsites, but not necessarily the no-mow area that Brent highlighted on the south of the road.
All right, and I imagine you probably get the debris from the river collecting closer to it there.
Yes.
Okay. All right, I don't have any other questions.
All right. Do I hear you voting one way or the other?
Okay, so I'll support the recommendation.
Okay. So I think we have all 4 of us. Yeah. In favor of it. Yep. Is that the direction you need?
Yeah, that's a suggestion we'll follow too, is Chad and I work together on some signage that we can put to let people know that we're just not, like, it's intentional, that we're, and then we'll communicate it through some other mediums as well.
Yep. Thank you. That's good. Anything else?
Spring cleanup day is Saturday, May 6th. And one of the pieces I just was on my work session slide. Just wanted to let you know, as it relates to 216 Carver Creek Place, we're getting quotes. We're just doing our taking a lot of care with how the quotes are solicited and the language being used. So that's being was originally scheduled for your May 15th meeting. We're pushing that back to your first meeting in June. And then the last thing that I just popped into my mind when I said June, the state legislature is contemplating moving up Juneteenth, the effective date for that, to this year. So there's current legislation on the books right now that would make Juneteenth a state holiday in addition to the federal holiday status. So the city can't conduct city business on June 19th going forward, or the day before or after if it happens to fall on a Saturday or Sunday. Where that comes into play this year is, I believe, June 19th is the third Monday of the month.
Yes.
So we'll monitor it, but we might, based on what legislative action takes place, we might need to have that meeting on June 20th. So if you want to just kind of pencil that off on your calendar, that might, based on where everything falls when the session closes, that might be a thing, so.
Okay.
I can add too that this is causing a lot of stress for cities because the law was already passed, thinking it was going to take effect next year, and now cities are going to have roughly 2 or 3 weeks to figure out their meeting schedule, especially when many of them have canceled their first meetings in July because of the 4th of July. So it's a little chaotic, but it looks like that might happen with the way the current omnibus bill is drafted, and we'll just have to play it by ear.
All right.
About that week anyway.
One of the things that I'm not looking for a response unless you are, really want to give one, but the council would need to consider whether or not you wanted to make that a paid holiday. I mean, we can't conduct city business, but there would be a choice on whether or not you wanted to have that be a paid holiday.
It's a paid holiday.
Okay.
Yeah. Yes. Thank you for.
I got back from the city managers conference, and there are some cities that are having quite a bit of consternation about it, and I just wanted to make sure I was being transparent that with you on that choice.
So like the city offices can't be open and they're sending it, it's a paid holiday.
I think where that comes from is, well, I don't know where it comes from. Every city's different, but the fact that holiday exists and the city can't be open doesn't necessarily mean that staff, from a policy standpoint, need to get a paycheck. That's what some councils think. Is it right? Is it wrong? That's not for me to decide, but the way to address this is pretty simple. I mean, we would have it formally added to the city's personnel policy with the rest of the holidays that are listed. That they're consistent with the ones that are in state law, and I think the city's practice is to pay its employees on holidays, which is a good practice from my standpoint. And so that's the formal step that will need to happen as soon as the legislation takes effect. So staff can work to get something to the council at some point, but it'll probably be a pretty simple tweak to the personnel policy to add that holiday.
I am happy to support that. I see 5 members of our city staff in here who are in here at nearly 8 o'clock on a Monday night, and while it's part of your jobs, I feel like all of your jobs interfere in like off work hours enough. There's no way we would ever ask you to. No, it's a paid holiday. If anyone feels differently, feel free to speak up. But that's it. Okay. Thank you, Joy.
I have no
updates.
update.
Lori.
I do have an update. There was a county leaders meeting last week. Very informative, a lot of discussion about road improvements within the county, and just kind of explanations too on state versus county and how they collaborate. So it was very positive.
All right, thank you. Eric?
Well, I have a couple. I attended our planning commission meeting on the 20th with our community development director, Aaron Smith, who did an outstanding and entertaining job talking about R1, R2, RB, and TR zones. But so that we had some interesting discussion around tiny homes, about building a second home on an existing property, and retiring the unsewer district. Did you know we had unsewer districts?
No.
We do, but we're retiring those. Yep.
Sounds like we'll all have to watch the meeting tonight when we get home.
And then I also attended my first Southwest Transit Commission meeting. Most of that was centered around deliberation and extending an offer to a new CEO. One of the things that was brought up is they are having a real challenge with vehicles to support Prime. So they are engaging into a partnership with Lyft to take some of the pressure off of those Prime vehicles. And there's a different structure in how that's paid for, with a rider paying a balance after a certain amount. I need to understand if that impacts us, and I have a follow-up meeting with the Southwest Transit next week. That is, that's it.
All right, let's see, last couple of weeks, we have the Carver County Mayor's meeting. We had it here at the Getaway Motor Cafe a couple of Fridays ago. We had a Business Alliance meeting that was pretty well attended and continues to be well attended. The Lions had a busy week. They had a blood drive last Monday, and then they had a pork chop dinner, which was last Friday night, which if you missed out, shame on you, because they know how to make a good pork chop. And then there was a Women in City Government get-together last Wednesday night, I think it was, and the new Hennepin County Sheriff DeWanowit was there, so it was really cool. It was a smaller group, but it was really cool to talk to her and hear all about what she has to go through in her job, which was inspirational and appalling all at the same time. So I think that is it. Brent mentioned it, but we do have the Carver Cleanup Day this Saturday, so make sure that you have all your junk out, probably Friday night, so that the folks who will repurpose it can get their hands on it. Also, thank you. Each of us have these cards that we talked about at our last meeting, and we have probably a dozen or more of them so that we can hand them out to folks who want to connect with us or share a concern or an issue. So thank you for making this happen.
Yes, thank you.
With that, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Motion by Councilmember McKnight.
Second.
Second by Councilmember Pershman. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion passes.
Thank
Good
you.
evening, everyone.